All right. Well, we left off on chapter 20. Go up, baby. Up on chapter 19. We learned there. This is just a small review that what happened with the tribe of Benjamin and the Levites and the other Israelites. What happened?
There was a civil war.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go into the Civil War, and it was a result of what happened in chapter 19. And what had happened in chapter 19? Y'all remember? Something went on with the Levite, his concubine, and he did something to start. I'm trying not to give. I want you all to tell me what happened.
That was ravished by
Out.
I don't remember who it is, but she was ravished and he cut up her body and distributed it around Israel.
Right, and when they received that, that's where we are now. Yeah, I'm good, baby. His concubine had been brutally violated,
Mm-hmm.
and he cut her up and sent her out throughout. And so now the men and the leaders and those of Israel are gathering together, which is the other tribes, and they're gathering together. And so that's where we are in chapter 20. So, could I get someone to read chapter 20? I must move gingerly at the moment. I'm sorry. It's one of those days. Okay.
The whole of chapter 20?
Yeah, it's a lot. That's what I think it's like 40 some verses anyway. I'm trying to get to it. How many verses is it? Since I don't want to make one person, unless you just want to read the whole chapter yourself. I'm trying to get to it. I apologize. Or usually I'm low on point. I'm just having a hard time for that.
And I'm going to stumble over the unpronounceable words, but them. Then all of the sons of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, came out, and the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord at Mishbeth. The chiefs of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, took their stand in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now the sons of Benjamin heard that the sons of Israel had gone up to Mizpah, and the sons of Israel said, "Tell us, how did this wickedness take place?" So the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, "I came with my concubine to spend the night at Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. But the men of Gibeah rose up against me and surrounded the house at night because of me. They intended to kill me. Instead, they ravished my concubine so that she died. And I took hold of my concubine and cut her into pieces and sent her throughout the land of Israel's inheritance. For they have committed a lewd and disgraceful act in Israel. Behold, all you sons of Israel, give your advice and counsel here. Then all the people arose as one man, saying, "Not one of us will go to his tent, nor will any of us return to his house. But now this this is the thing which we will do to give it. We will go up against it by lot, and we will take 10 men out of 100 throughout the tribes of Israel, and 100 out of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000 to supply food for the people, that when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, they may punish them for all the disgraceful acts that they have committed in Israel." Thus all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, united as one man. Then the tribes of Israel sent men through the entire tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What is this wickedness that has taken place among you? Now then deliver up the men, the worthless fellows in Gibeath, that we may put them to death and remove the wickedness from Israel." But the sons of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the sons of Israel. The sons of Benjamin gathered from the city of Gibeath to go out to battle against the sons of Israel. From the cities on that day, the sons of Benjamin were numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeath, who were numbered 700 choice men. Out of all these people, 700 choice men were left-handed. Each one could sling a stone at the hare and not miss. Then the men of Israel, besides Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of them were men of war. Now the sons of Israel arose up to Bethel and inquired of God and said, "Who shall go up first for us to battle against the sons of Benjamin?" Then the Lord said, "Judah shall go up first." So the sons of Israel arose in the morning and camped against Gibeath. The men of Israel went out to the battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel arrayed for battle against them at Gibeath. The sons of Benjamin came out of the Gibeath and fell to the ground on that day, 22,000 men of Israel. But the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and arrayed for battle again in the place where they had arrayed themselves the first day. The sons of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall we again draw near for battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin?" And the Lord said, "Go up against him." Then the sons of Israel came against the sons of Benjamin on the second day. Benjamin went out against them from Gibeath the second day, and fell to the ground again, 18,000 men of the sons of Israel. All these drew the swords. Then all the sons of Israel and all the people went up and came to Bethel and wept. Thus they remained there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offering and peace offering before the Lord. The sons of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, Aaron's son, stood before it to minister in those days, saying, "Shall I yet again go out to battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin, or shall I cease?" And the Lord said, "Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand." So Israel set men in ambush around Gibeath. The sons of Israel went up against the sons of Benjamin on the third day and arrayed themselves against Gibeath as at other times. The sons of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city, and they began to strike and kill some of the people as at other times on the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeath in the field against 30 men of Israel. The sons of Benjamin said, "They are struck down before us as at the first." But the sons of Israel said, "Let us flee, that we may draw them away from the city to the highway." Then all the men of Israel arose from their place and arrayed themselves at Baal Tamar. And the men of Israel in ambush broke out of their place, even out of M- M- Gibeah, when 10,000 choice men from all of Israel came against Gibeah. The battle became fierce, but Benjamin did not know that disaster was close to them. And the Lord struck Benjamin before Israel. So the sons of Israel destroyed 25,100 men of Benjamin that day, all who drew the sword. So the sons of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. When the men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin because they relied on the men in, in ambush whom they had set against Gibeah. The men in ambush hurried and rushed against Gibeah. The men in ambush also deployed and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. Now the appointed sign between the men of Israel and the men in ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise from the city. Then the men of Israel turned in the battle, and Benjamin began to strike and kill about 30 men of Israel, for they said, surely they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. But when the cloud began to rise from the city in a column of smoke, Benjamin looked behind them, and behold, the whole city was going up in smoke to heaven. Then the men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were terrified, for they saw that the disaster was close to them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel towards the direction of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, while those who came out of the cities destroyed them in the midst of them. They surrounded Benjamin, pursued them without rest, and trod them down opposite Gibeah towards the east. Thus 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. All these were valiant warriors. The rest turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, but they caught 5,000 of them on the highway and overtook them at Gimmon and killed 2,000 of them. So all of Benjamin who fell that day was 25,000 men who drew the sword, all of these valiant warriors. But 600 men turned and fled towards the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they remained at the rock of Rimmon 4 months. The men of Israel then turned their back against the sons of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword, both the entire city with the cattle and all that they found. They also set on fire all the city which they found.
Thank you, Olatomi, for reading. So, excuse me. As we see in the very beginning of it, we see that the sons of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, came out, and the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord in Mizpah. And while they were at Mizpah, what were they doing? What was going on? What do we see happening? The chiefs of all the people, they all arrived there, and they came and assembled. It says that they took. It says that the chiefs of all the people, even the tribes of Israel, took their stand in the assembly of the people of God. How many foot soldiers did they have?
400,000 men.
400,000 men, right? And there they stand. And so now they're before the together and they assemble together. And what does the Levite, the husband of the woman, do? He recounts the story of what took place, right?
Right.
He begins to tell them because they saw what had happened, the fact that they received pieces of the woman and all the things that took place. They saw it as what? How did they view all this?
Wickedness.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Which would be probably your reaction if you went down to your mailbox and pulled out your mail and there lies pieces of a person, right? That's just something, that had never been done. This type of thing had never been done. And so what was the result of after him giving well, first of all, he asked for what? What did he ask? He asked for,
Advice and counsel.
yeah. So what advice and counsel do they give him? Did the men give him? They start in verse 8. What does it say? What do they say? Then all the people arose as one man. And what did they say, y'all?
That none of them will return to their tent or house,
Mm-hmm.
but they will go up against it by lot.
Mm-hmm. They're going to go up against them, right? They're going to gather the men together. They said we will take 10 men out of 100, right? Throughout the tribe of Israel. 100 out of 1,000, 1,000 out of 10,000 to supply food for the people. And that when they come to give up to Benjamin, that they're going to do what? What are they going to do?
Punish Benjamin for the disgraceful act that was committed in Israel.
Yeah. And what was the disgrace that they had done?
Well, raped and killed the concubine.
Mm-hmm. They raped and killed the concubine. They also were, trying to kill him and
Mm-hmm.
do things to him. So they were acting very wicked, were they not?
Yep.
So they gathered together against the city, united as one man. I mean, they were united in what they were doing, correct?
Yeah, one force.
Yeah.
And they were doing what is required of them from Deuteronomy 13,
And what does it
which
tell us?
says
Go ahead.
that if there's an abomination of this sort, that you are to go and destroy everything, people, cattle, the whole bit.
Right. All of it.
All
So
of it.
all of it. So then the tribes of Israel sent men throughout the entire tribe of Benjamin. And they said, what is this wickedness that has taken place among you? Now then, deliver up the men, the worthless fellows, and give. They wanted them to do what?
Give up the guys who had committed the crime.
Right. Give them up. Right. What was the response of Benjamin?
Nothing.
They said, no way.
Nope. Which tells you their hearts also, doesn't it?
Right.
So the sons of Benjamin,
It's probably so rampant they wouldn't even know who did it because they're all doing it.
and
Exactly.
that's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. So they gathered from the cities of Gibeah to go out and battle against the sons of Israel. Benjamin gathers together, they're getting ready to go out. So how many go out?
From Benjamin,
Yeah.
26,000.
Hmm. Who drew up the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who were numbered what? 700 choice men. And
Right.
out of all these people, 700 choice men were left-handed, which is interesting. And each one could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. So these are men ready for war, aren't they? They're ready to fight. But how many went out from the sons of Israel?
400,000 men.
Men of war. So this is definitely a civil war going on. So you have the tribes of Israel, which is about 11, right? Against one tribe, which is Benjamin. Now the sons of Israel did what? which is interesting. But what did they do?
They sought the Lord first before they went into battle.
Yeah, they did. Okay. And the Lord told them to do what?
To go.
What tribe did he send first?
Well, they
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sherry.
they didn't ask the Lord what to do. They were kind of chicken at first and just saying, "Okay, Lord, which group should go up?" You know,
Right.
none of them are really standing up and going, "I'll lead the charge." And so Judah is told, or the Lord says that Judah will go up first.
It was
All
more
right.
like they had more faith in themselves than they did in the Lord. It was more just like a ritual. We're going to seek him, but we're not really seeking him.
Which is interesting when you think about it. The fact of all the wickedness that's going on, they're inquiring of the Lord. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. But oh, that's a lesson there. So the sons of Israel rose in the morning and camped against Geba. The men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men they were arrayed in battle. They're ready to go, aren't they? But what happened? What happened when they went out?
Well, the Benjamites killed 22,000 of them.
Now, would do you think that the men of Israel expected that?
No.
Would you have expected that?
No, but they didn't ask the Lord for protection.
True.
Mm. So you wouldn't have expected that they would fall, but they did, right? 22,000 of them fell. But the people, the men of Israel, was what? They did what with themselves?
They wept until
Not-
evening, and they went and inquired of the Lord again.
Well, at first they did what? In 22. They encouraged themselves, didn't they? And they're ready for battle again. So they got themselves ready for battle again, right? Change my paper here. I have to move gingerly. Okay. So the sons of Israel went up, and now they wept before the Lord, right? But they are ready for battle, though. They are prepared for battle. And they did it until before the Lord until evening. And they inquired of the Lord. And this time, what did they ask the Lord? Shall we again draw near?
Shall we again? Yeah. Go fight against our brothers, the people of Benjamin.
And what was the Lord's response, ladies?
Go up against them.
The Lord sends them up again. So they go a second time, okay, against the sons of Benjamin. And what happens on the second day?
They lose 18,000 more.
Interesting, isn't it? Oh, so they lose 18,000 more. Then all the sons of Israel and all the people went up and came. Where did they go?
The Bethel,
And why did they go to Bethel?
because the Ark of the Covenant was up there.
Right. And they went up there and they wept, right? And they remained there before the Lord. And they also did what else? While they were before the Lord. They did some things while they were there in verse 26.
They fasted until evening and offered burnt offering.
And peace offerings before the Lord. Then they inquired of the Lord this time, right? And what happens? Who acquires?
Venus.
And he's the son of who?
Eliezer,
Which is also what?
Aaron's son.
So this is a priest line, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he stood before it to minister. And what is the question that he asked the Lord?
Shall I yet again go out to battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin, or shall I cease?
And what is the Lord's promise this time?
He said to go up, I will deliver them into your hand.
There's his promise. This time the Lord said, he would go up, for them to go up, and he would deliver them. So
Mhm.
who's going to do the delivering?
God.
God is. So Israel, they set men in ambush, right? And this is the third day. So on the third day, they go up and array themselves against Gibeah. What do you think it means that they arrayed themselves?
They spread themselves out.
Spread themselves out. Maybe they had on their battle gear, had gotten their things together. Maybe that could have been it. What do you all think? This is the third time they've done it against Gibeah, as at other times. So they did the exact same thing the first two times, arraying themselves for battle, preparing themselves for battle.
But they had a strategy this time. They had a
This
plan.
time, there you go. They had a plan this time. What was the plan?
That God was going to deliver them.
Hmm. This time they had the assurance that God
Right.
was going to deliver them. So tell me what took place. How did all this come about here down to 29 on? What happened? They were drawn away from the city, weren't they? The Benjamins.
Right.
And so what happens? Tell me what went on, y'all.
That the sons of Benjamin, when they were drawn away from the city, they began to strike and kill the people, the children of Israel. 30 men died.
And so they thought they were good, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They thought, they thought they were good. They struck down before us as the first time. Remember, because they defeated them the first two times. Well, not defeated necessarily, but they did strike down many. So they
Right.
thought they were good. And so, but the sons of Israel said, "Let us flee, that we may draw them away from the what?"
From the city
And they want to take them where?
to the highways.
Right. And they're drawing them out. Why are they doing all this drawing out?
They're going to overtake the city and destroy it. They're
There you go.
baiting them out for battle. They're dividing them.
Yes. Yes. Very good. So when all the men of Israel rose from their place and arrayed themselves, and the men of Israel in ambush broke out of their place, even out of Mara Geba. When 10,000 choice men from all of Israel came against Geba, the battle became what? Fierce.
Yes.
But Benjamin didn't know what? What did they not know about? They didn't know the disaster that was so close to them. They didn't realize where they were about to be destroyed. They were about to be dealt with. And what did the Lord, it says here, and the Lord, what did the Lord do?
Struck and Benjamin before Israel.
Struck Benjamin before Israel, did it not? His socks over here, kid. You might want to send Lydia or somebody come get them. Right.
I don't think Benjamin realized that the Lord was on Israel's side.
No. Hmm. So the sons of Benjamin saw, right, they weren't, they were confident in themselves. Well, where did they get all this confidence from?
From the two previous.
Right.
And then
They're over there. Let's go over the side of the bed and get them. I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on one second. Let me just. Okay, I'm sorry. My granddaughter's getting socks. Okay. Oh, where was I at? She threw me off. Okay. Okay. So the Lord struck them, and they were cocky, weren't they?
mm-hmm.
Don't you think they had like a cocky attitude? What do y'all think?
Yeah. And then when they hit the first 30, they say, oh yes, it's going the same way the third time again.
They were kind of cocky, right? But there's a shock going to happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. It says, when the men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin, because they relied on the men in ambush whom they had set against Geba, right? The men in ambush hurried and did what?
And rushed against Geba and struck the city.
With the edge of the sword. Now, the appointed sign between the men of Israel and the men of in the ambush was that they would make a great what?
Cloud of smoke rise up
Cloud
out
of-
of the city.
There you go. And the men of Israel the men of Israel turned in the battle. And Benjamin began to strike and kill about 30 men of Israel. For they said, surely they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. But, I love that but when the cloud began to rise from the city and a column of smoke, what does Benjamin do? The tribe of Benjamin do? They look behind them, don't they?
Yep. And they realized.
The city was going up in smoke. And then what does the men of Israel do? The men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin are now what?
Running.
And they're terrified, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
But they now see that the disaster was close to them. So in the beginning, they were very cocky and they had confidence, right? Because of the first two battles. They come out to the third battle and they're ready to go. They think they got this. This is paraphrasing, y'all. We got this. We good. But little do they know, God is the one that's doing the what?
Fighting.
He's the one doing it. And can you fight God?
Nope.
No.
No. All right. But when the cloud, began to rise to the city in a column of smoke, Benjamin looked behind them and they saw, right? So then the men of Israel turned and were terrified, and they started turning their backs before the men of Israel toward the directions of the what? They headed toward what? The wilderness, aren't they? But what happens?
Well,
They
they were
run.
running from the city thinking that is where the attack was coming from. They run towards the wilderness only to realize they're being ambushed from the wilderness as well. So they've got two camps of Israelites with them in the middle. And so they're destroyed, other than the
Wow.
600.
yeah.
So they got destroyed, right? Wow. Don't you say wow to that?
Mm-hmm.
Now it says, that they were destroyed, and it says the last verse says, well, the 600 did what? Let me talk about that for a minute. I ask this question. The 600 did what? They remained what? In a rock, didn't they?
Yeah.
For 4 months. And the men of Israel then turned back against the sons of Benjamin and did what again?
Drop them.
With the edge of the sword, both the entire city, with the cattle and all that they found. They also set on fire all the cities which they found. So they utterly destroyed them at this point, right?
Right.
So what as you were doing this study on this, I know that I think we talked about it a little bit last time. This appears to me, and I thought about it again today, had to have taken place, I think, before the judges. What do y'all think? Before the judges arose. What do you all think? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the same thing because I noted that they referenced Venus.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right,
so why
that's
would
what
they
I thought.
reference
Mhm.
Venus
Mhm.
if it wasn't happening before all of Judges took place? Because they didn't, they didn't recognize God during Judges. So why would they reference him?
And Phoenix was born in Egypt, wasn't he, before they left Egypt?
Was he? Let me think. And honestly, I have to think because I read so many genealogies this week. I got to get them together in my head. Wait a minute. Yeah, sometimes you have to think a minute. Was he born before in Egypt? Let me think. Aaron, I guess he would have been, or was, Yeah, well, he had to been. Yeah, 'cause wasn't he? Yeah, I think he was. Anybody
I
remember?
read it quickly, but I can't remember that he was born before they left Egypt. So
Well, Elisiar was the son of Aaron, so you have to think that he was born in Egypt. And Aaron was how old when they left Egypt? 40 years old. So yeah, Venus might have been born in Egypt.
According to our trusty timeline, the Benjaminites were defeated in 1375,
Right.
and that is before the judges come on board.
Right.
Very good. I would have my timeline out, but I can only move gingerly today. So I got limited things moving. Very good. So that's my thought. So what was maybe your takeaway or anything that you learned from studying Judges chapter 20? What were some of the things you learned?
well, for one thing that really stood out to me, why is it that they waited until they were defeated the first two times to really go to God and fast and pray and inquire? They should have done all of that when they gathered together in the first place and before they decided to go out to war. They should have sought to see what God wanted them to do. But they decided and then went to God.
Okay, good point. Anybody else? Well, while we're waiting to see if anybody else has a comment, on that note of what Olatunde pointed out, what does that speak to us as believers today?
That in any decision we should seek God's face first.
Ah,
We go and make our plans. And not when we're in the middle of the hot water, then you start seeking him and say, oh, please save me. When this
wish
spot,
That's pretty
I
good.
wish I could laugh. I like that. When you're in the
Point.
middle of the hot water, now you're gonna seek the Lord, right? And He answers still. Thank the Lord that He does with His grace and His mercy, that He still responds to us. But it's better to seek the Lord before you start out on stuff, right?
I think these chapters are just an indication of what's going to happen to the people. This is just the beginning of the wickedness, the civil war. I mean, all of it. And these two chapters should be the beginning of the chapters of Judges so that you can see the downfall instead of it being at the end where, it brings it all. But I think these chapters just show the downfall of the people. They had already pretty much had no use for the Lord, and they only sought him, like old Tommy said, when they were in hot water. And so you could tell by this time in their history, Joshua was gone. They had no really firm leader. They were kind of doing their own thing. For a split second, they were brought together by a wickedness, but then they all went their separate ways afterwards and did their own wickedness. So
Very good points. It's indicative, their behavior is indicative of what their heart state is at. The hearts are dark. They're starting,
right.
they're going definitely in the wrong direction, which we know that they do. So what is your chapter theme? Did you put for a chapter theme for this chapter?
May I bring up something first?
Oh, feel free.
I thought one of the really good cross references for this for Benjamin is Jacob's blessing. When Jacob was blessing his sons, and it is that Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, in the evening he divides the plunder. All these, I just clicked off of it. All these are of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then it just goes on. But I think that's interesting.
It is. It is.
He's living up to his blessing, or the Benjaminites are living up to the blessing.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because when you read it in, when you read the lesson that was bestowed upon him, right, you kind of wonder, because I read it this week, not just looking this, I was just reading it. And you kind of go, why say that about it, right? What's going on? Then you see what he's like at the tribe
Right.
itself as time goes on. Very interesting, isn't it? So what was you all, oh, somebody want to say something? I see Lisa.
I was just thinking that one of the big things I thought, if you put this back toward the end of Joshua, after they supposed to rout the Canaanites, when they take over the promised land, is that Israel realized, you finally see that Israel, well, they might not have realized it, maybe they did, they're their own worst enemy, if you think about it.
Yes.
They're doing everything they were called to do by God. This is the ironic part. Everything that he called them to do, unite as one man, go forward under his direction, etc., all came to fruition. But this time, instead of it being the Canaanites, it was their own flesh and blood,
People.
the own
Yeah.
people, their own people of God. And that's just true of us today. We, whether we want to acknowledge it, are our own worst enemy. We like to say it's the circumstance or the culture or the way my husband treats me or whatever it might be, but really it's our own sinful innate desires and tendencies that get us ultimately in the most sinful predicaments before God. And what we see here is finally his mercy. Remember Deuteronomy, those who've walked through all these books, he promised there would be curse. He promised things would happen, and he'd been gracious all the way up through it. Even when they didn't rout the Canaanites and destroy them like they were supposed to under Joshua completely. They did some, but not completely. And now, instead of mercy, you finally see divine curse and you see Deuteronomy 29 and 30 and stuff coming true. Particularly when you put it before the judges, and then that's just an outpouring of that, right? What we see as it unfolds into the judges situation. Just thought that was interesting. And it took a Levite priest, who we would say for the most part was corrupt and wasn't even doing what he should have been doing, to unite them. They couldn't even unite under Joshua and follow what God told them to do. I mean, they were united, but they didn't follow what God told them to do. And finally, when they did, I just thought, wow, what irony. Wow. But yet they are their own worst enemy, because they almost destroyed 112. Benjamin's decimated at this point. And of course, we know what's getting ready to happen, which I'm not sure that last chapter always throws me. I never know what to do with the last chapter of Judges, but so they're going to build back up, I'm assuming, through whether we call it sinful means or not. It's just like, oh my, but they almost destroyed, and they were destroyed too. They lost over 40,000 men of their own, in that civil war. But I really thought that part about they were their own worst enemy to an extent, because this is before the judges. That's what we need to remember.
Yep.
It is our sin, it is our desires that we still battle with that evil, sinful heart that we have. It's a new nature. We have a new heart, of course, but we still battle against what we once were. And I think that's important to remember.
No, Lisa, there's one thing, what you said is so true, but it's unfortunate as believers, many of us, and I say many of us because I don't like to just make it generic, don't realize that we are our own worst enemy, that we blame everything else and anything else we can. And we rename stuff, like it's the preacher's fault. It's the husband's fault. So why, no, stop, it's our fault. Because if you don't be obedient to God, there is no justification for you sinning. I think I said it this week with grandchildren. I don't know one of them. And talk to them. I said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. They say, well, they did. No, I don't want to talk about what they did. I want to talk about what you did. Okay, so because you have a choice to make. And and that's and actually I said it to some adults this week as well. We keep blaming everybody else, but what is the choice that you're making? I granted they wrong. I don't have no problem with they're wrong. I'm trying to understand what your problem is. And I'm not being mean to you. I'm saying you're making a choice to do the opposite of what God said. So does that not make you as wrong as they are? Although you're justifying what you're doing because of what they did. But we all going to answer to God for what we going to answer to God for? What we do. Not what the other person does. It's ours. Our responsibility. I've been reading one of the books, I think it's Tozer's book on fellowship with God. I can't think of the total title, the complete title. But in there he talks about, being holy unto God, that is what we're supposed to be. But that is not what we're being, because we're looking everywhere else and following that which we see. And is that not Judges in a nutshell? That they did, we're gonna get
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's not Judges in a nutshell. And it's sad. It's not. It's really, these last 3 chapters. I think we talked about it last week. Are very odd for me. Every time I read them, I'm going, this is crazy. Like, what are you all doing? Just the fact that he cut her up and passed her out. I mean, that just, and then and they thought, they looked at the wickedness of Benjamin. But did you not think that was odd that he sent her out like that? See how they were writing their own what?
Laws.
Writing their own lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like this,
even his rendition, we didn't really discuss it, but even what he said to the whole assembly there that had gathered wasn't quite jiving with what we read in the previous chapter.
right. I forgot that part. Right. You're right.
I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't exactly right. It wasn't exactly correct. It was all about himself and poor little me. Look what happened. He had no love, no concern for that concubine. He's called the husband of the woman and the murdered woman. You're like, well, who murdered her?
Right.
Didn't you guys wonder those weird questions? Maybe I was just the only
Yeah.
one out
No,
there
you
left
weren't
field.
by
Who
yourself.
murdered her? Was she really alive at the doorstep so that in essence he murdered her by killing her and chopping her up? I don't know. Scripture doesn't tell us. Did the men that raped her and ravished her all night long murder her? I don't know. It's just like, wait, what? Wait a minute. Why did it say the murdered woman? It was like, that's just, some of that was just like, wow, that's odd. But anyway.
He left out the part about him handing her over to them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
He didn't put any of that stuff in. The fact that they weren't even, he went with a different reason than he even said. He wasn't just passing through. I'm just like, what? This is just really weird.
He didn't tell the whole story.
No.
But
As happens often.
it wasn't me. It's they did it, not me. I had nothing to do with it.
I know. That's
But you had a lot
exactly
to
what
do
he's doing.
And that's the interesting thing.
He made it look like he didn't, and so he's the one bringing the accusation, but in some ways he was also part of the criminality against that poor woman. I was just like, okay, maybe that's that justice part of me. I'm an ITSJ person.
Well,
So I just thought
he
that was
also, as a Levite, he knows what he should be doing, how he should be living his life. He shouldn't even been there with the concubine. So he's guilty from way back.
That's what I'm saying.
Somewhere.
It's just,
Yeah.
wow.
And then it just snowballs.
He's the last vestige. If we put this before the rest of Judges, he's the last vestige of the priesthood, and we know what's going to happen. Here's the corruption at its fullest of the priesthood, corruption at its fullest with no leaders, and corruption at its fullest with the people. That's what I saw. And then boom, well, Judges makes a lot more sense if this were put at the beginning.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, well, now I see why God had to raise up the judges. Then everyone did what was right in his own eyes, because that's the end result of these 3 things: priesthood, leadership, and people, all corrupt and in sin.
Yeah.
And God gave them the curse he said he would when he just gave them over to it. So anyway, interesting.
Good points. No, these are good points. You're right. I did think of these things as I was studying, and I was like, okay, wow. Okay, so this is not quite the story. But isn't that what we do? We give half story. This is why whenever if you're a person that's doing an advocate or mediator, or you're having a conversation with family members or friends, you need to get to what?
All sides of the story.
Get both sides of the story. Because there's always something missing.
And Sharice, it doesn't even have to be in a negative way either.
No.
We could just, if we were to have coffee next week and talk about this particular class, we're not doing anything bad. We're not trying to hide anything. We would probably, I think 6 of us in the room, we would have our own version in a way of what happened in this class. It's just the way we are as humans. So she's right. Anytime any of I have a sister living with me now, and we go through some memories and things that we've done, and we'll come up with what are you talking about? I don't remember that. You know, you do that when you talk to people, what you've lived memories, events through, and you're like, wow,
Same
all
event.
these different same events with
Yep.
so many. It's like the elephant. You've heard the story that if you had blind men touching the elephant, different parts are going to describe it differently, right? Because one may get the trunk, other tail, and that's exactly what we do as humans. We have our own preconceived notions and our glasses of that taint us, and we just see everything through all that. Sometimes good, bad, and ugly. And so you're right, Olatomi. You got to get the whole story to know the truth. And even then, I don't even know if you can actually know it, right?
Right, but you need both sides.
But you definitely
So
do.
whatever you
for
talk, even
sure.
though
Or
nobody even
accept
know.
the truth. We may know it, but do we accept it?
That's right. Which
That's
is what
that's
that's
part
the
of
big
it.
thing for
That's
this
yes.
dude, right? Accepting what the truth was about what happened.
And I think
But
when family members get together, like you said, Lisa, and they all start telling a story, their version of something,
Yeah,
that it's hard to get to what the real truth is
it
because
is.
everybody's got their own version, you know.
yeah,
Yep.
and we like to
Anyway,
rewrite history.
Yes, and we
Because
like to rewrite it from our version and make it
yes,
look
we do.
nice.
yep.
Boy, okay, we can rewrite some things, right?
Yeah.
Now, some of
Okay.
it's just innocuous aging, memories fade, that. I'm not talking about that. But when it comes to sin, and we definitely have to be careful that we treat that seriously and don't let just one person's ideas and opinions and accounting of it rule. It's one thing to talk about what you did on your 50th birthday celebration. That's no big deal, unless there's something sinful in that, of course. But we're talking about serious stuff here.
No,
And
that's true.
that's what
It's
be
very
even
true.
for us as believers today. We have to be fair and balanced when we deal with conflict and etc.
Mhm.
Or even husband and wife relationships. You've got to come together, whatever it might be, and really listen and
Yeah,
understand and give grace and mercy and let love
we
cover a
definitely
multitude
do.
too.
We really do. I think
Anyway,
I said that. I did say that this week. And I'm talking to someone, and they were talking. I said, "See, you can make the choice to forgive and let the past be the past. You can do that because the Lord tells us to forgive, and we need to let some things. You just are never going to be able to resolve some things because neither one you see it one way, and they see it another from the past. And your how to say your way may be the right way. You may have seen it that way. It may have taken place that way, but the other person didn't see it that way. So y'all can never come to to agreement on it because both of you are stuck for all these years. We're talking years of something that at this point in time you can't do anything about. Think about it. It's a past. Alexa, dismiss. Alexa, dismiss. And this is not even ignoring me. She's just ignoring me. Okay, so um, you try to um, fix things or you're holding on to something that's a memory of 20 years ago, maybe not even longer than that. And the other person has the same memory, but it's different. And let it go, people. Forgive and walk on. Choose to have something different now. Choose to. So because it does have it's serious when we walk with the Lord. That's the thing I think that lands with me with reading Judges. It's a very it's I don't even have a word for it when you're reading through Judges because you just sit there and go, my goodness, the hearts are so dark. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
really?
it's very
And don't you
unsettling.
see, I don't want to bring up anything politically, but when we look at what's happening in Israel and Gaza, and you come back to all of this from the very beginning, you're like, that's why this is happening. You know, that it's going to probably be a war to the death, to the nth degree. It's both sides see that they're righteously right in doing what they're doing. And as I was going through, I was like, you know, anyway, when you read about if there's an abomination against you, you are to go in and destroy everything. Well, that's what's happening. It's just scary.
Yeah. So that's why our hearts in Christ, why we have to really teach the word and tell people, look, yes, this is what happened, but look what we can do under Christ. Under Christ, what do we get? What do we get under the Lord now that we're in Christ?
Well, forgiveness
Lots
and
of things.
Yeah.
saving and the Holy Spirit, but they don't have that. That's what
Yeah.
I think. That's what's so sad in all the muck and mire of what they're going through is they don't have. They could have it, but they don't have it.
Mhm. Wow. Wow, ladies. So what is your chapter theme? Anybody got one?
I put it's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah.
I
Oh, you're so funny. I love it.
put Civil War with Benjamin.
Okay.
Yes.
That's just the easiest way to remember that whole messy chapter.
That was a chapter, boy.
And it's sad when you think back to, Rachel and Benjamin. And I don't know. I'm like, oh, what y'all do, y'all? What y'all do?
But think about it, that even
Oh,
that was messy.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's true.
Yes.
With
That should have been
Rachel.
a foreshadowing of what's
Yeah.
to
Yeah, no
come.
doubt.
That's why
That was messy.
Jacob said what he said, I guess.
It's a little
It's hard to
messy
make a
situation.
it's,
It was
it's hard to
messy
make a
then,
blessing on all these guys,
but didn't you not
Anybody?
have an animosity between the two sisters?
Yes.
That just falls into all the tribes.
And
Yes.
it's just there, and the Lord he can heal, and I'm thankful that he can. But we got to present
And
some
that
of
he
the truth,
does. But
and that he
you know,
does. Owning up to it and saying, Lord, we're just not going there this week. You know what I'm saying? No, we're not going down with the ship. This is too much. We can't do that. Wonderful. So now we're on 21, which is this one is I
Oh,
know
jeez.
I know I was just sitting there going, what? So now we got to now the men of Israel has sworn in Mizpah, saying, none of us shall give his daughter, excuse me, to Benjamin in marriage. So the people came to Bethel and sat there before God until evening, and lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. They said, why, O Lord? Why, O Lord, God of Israel, has this come about in Israel, so that one tribe should be missing today in Israel? Now, y'all, what was your thoughts on verse 3?
But they know why.
I want to laugh so bad. Yeah. They know.
Well, they know
Well,
why, but they don't know why. I mean, they've got the blinders on.
my first reaction was they were so bitter and sad and weeping over a tribe missing, but not sin.
Yep.
Yes.
Not the
Yes.
sin that got them to this
that's a
point.
conviction pinch. Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not the sin.
I mean, they know what led to it. They had the Civil War and they killed most of them off. That right. But I'm like, well, why aren't you mourning over your sin?
Because that's what got you
Their
there.
sin, and then it's just like, whoa. But that's us.
Yep.
How often do we say, why am I in this mess? Why do I not have the money I need for the bills? And then, we know the sinful spending we did the month before on all the clothes or whatever we shouldn't have, whatever. I'm just throwing that out there. It's us, guys, gals, not us particularly in this room, but it's us as believers today
Well,
that we still do the very same thing. We wonder why when we just are blind, as Lisa said, to our own sin, even though we're not really blind, but we pretend to be blind, so to speak. I don't know.
I like Isaiah 63:17. Why, O Lord, do you cause us to stray from your ways and harden our heart from fearing you? We're blaming it on the Lord.
Yeah.
I would laugh if I could. I'm telling you. We're actually blaming God.
Why?
Why, Lord, did I end up in this? This was a good point. That's a good point.
Mhm.
They missed the sin that they could. That's when I read it. I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" You asked the Lord God, "Why you end up there?" You know why you end up there.
It can't
Y'all got there
possibly
because
be my fault.
y'all got there because of sin.
And then
That's
you
how y'all
fast forward to 400 years before Christ and you get to Malachi.
Yeah.
If you've studied Malachi, I'm recently finishing up a study with my church group, and you see what do you mean, Lord? How do we disgrace your table? All the question, that haughty, arrogant attitude. This is reminiscent of that, just in a different way. But at then that point in their history, you're like, wow. you know.
Wow, moment. It's
They
wow.
still don't get it. Even at the end of the whole Israelite Old Testament story, account, they still don't get it.
And they don't have, if we've got the Levites, who is their example? Who is leading? Because they have no leadership. So they're out here doing all that they want to do. But somehow it's amazing to me that all of it just is ignored, forgotten, or never taught anymore. That they're out here just, living as heathens.
Hmm.
But don't they say that's even true today? Usually second generation will play, you're here, you
Yes.
got a generation, second generation will still
Yes.
be slightly holding to what was taught with their parental
Yes.
generation, but by the third generation, the grandchildren, it's in some cases it be completely lost. So think about that. Think of how many generations we're in. We'll use Joshua, and then the leaders who follow Joshua, they're all gone. So that's quote, not technically generations, but technically leadership generations, right? So we're now on that third group with no leaders, and
Mhm.
yeah, so I don't know how that happens, ladies. How does that happen? How
I
does that
think
And
happen? How can
hanging their little
Ahaz?
God in their
How
kitchen
can
tent. That's
Ahaz have
crazy.
Hezekiah, but Hezekiah has Manasseh? You're just like,
Mhm.
what? I don't get this, Lord. That does not make any sense.
But it
I
happens like
always
that.
ask myself that when I study
Just,
Kings. How can they have this guy and then have this guy?
yeah, just wow. And how can the law be lost? This was
Yes.
something they were supposed to, and then Ezra finds it when they're doing stuff at the temple, and you're like, we found this dusty old thing, read it. And he stands up and read it. You're just like, how can you lose the word of God? But think about our dusty Bible sitting on shelves.
Many, many.
I'm just like, I don't know. We're hard on them, but at the same time, the modern church is a lot like this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick on any
Yes.
individual people, but if we evaluate ourselves and examine ourselves, we may find there might be traces of this in us at times too.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's going beyond. But
Not me.
You're fine, Sherry. It's so funny.
Oh, Sherry, I love you. You're a crack up.
It came about the next day that
Love
the
you
people
too.
rose early and built an altar, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. Then the sons of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel who did not come up in the assembly of the Lord? Okay, that's their question. For they had taken a great oath concerning him who did not come up to the Lord at Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the sons of Israel were sorry for their brother Benjamin and said, one tribe is cut off from us, from Israel today. What shall we do for wives? Okay, for those who are left, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage. Okay, this is their dilemma, right? It's very interesting, their little dilemma. Now you destroyed them. Now what do we do for wives for them? Now what's missing here? Before we go on to talk about it, what's missing?
God,
There you go. What didn't they do?
Then go to God again.
And go inquire of God what was to be
Well,
done.
I don't. Why are they asking in verse 5? Who is there among all the tribes of Israel who did not come up in the assembly to the Lord? You just killed out that tribe. So why are we asking that?
Okay, what do y'all think? What do you think, Sherry? Put a question there.
I wonder if that's just showing their frustration because God's not answering them. They're trying
Okay.
to, maybe they're trying to, well, what in the world? Who didn't come up? Benjamin didn't come up. Would we put them to that? Weren't we supposed to put them to? They didn't say it that way, but I wonder if they're just like talking out loud through this whole problem they now have based on decisions they made without God. For the most part, eventually at the end, God told them to go up and he would defeat them. So now, wouldn't you wonder, well, what are they supposed to do? If God allowed them to rout Benjamin, how do you know God doesn't desire that Benjamin can be completely cut off? I don't know if they're
Mhm.
thinking that or not, but have you wondered that? I mean, you got Lord in it, but the Lord doesn't, he's not, it's the way the Lord worked in the last chapter is just odd. You know, he never told them to go the first 2 times. He just said Judah goes first. Notice he didn't say, tell Judah to go first and I will deliver them. He just said Judah will go first. And then when
But they
they
never
asked
asked that.
then when they
I'm
asked
back
the
to how
second
they
time,
asked in
right?
the prayers.
Yeah, when
That
they
it was almost incremental that, okay, on this step, we'll just ask this. On this step, we'll ask this.
no,
And on the
that's what
third step.
that's
Oh, yeah, maybe we ought to ask him
and
the
finally when
really,
they do it the way God calls them to do it,
yes,
they're repentant, they're fasting, they're offering
yes,
sacrifices. They get a
yes,
true priest involved, not a
yes.
fake Levitical priest.
Right.
Then he answers the way why? Because they were doing what he asked them to do in the prescribed manner, just like David when they moved the ark, remember? And Uzzah was killed. Well, we
Right.
didn't do it correctly that way, but boy, 20 some years later they did. And David danced all the way through the streets with it because he knew he was doing it the way God called them to.
Right.
But
I
I
don't
wonder
know.
about
I'm
the
asking.
600 Benjaminites because Deuteronomy says you wipe out everybody.
So that's what I don't. This is why I don't know what
I
to do with all this. I'm just like, I don't know. What are they doing? Why are they asking these
my brain.
questions?
Okay.
And
Well, it
why?
could it not be? Could it not be that the Lord allowed it and after the third time, destroyed it to set the purpose so that people would see?
Yeah, that's what I think did
See,
happen.
you know,
Yeah.
look at what you're doing without me.
Yep.
I got nothing to do with this, but you're
If you
doing
go
this.
back, it reminded me of AI or I when they went up
Yes.
against it. Remember
Yes.
Achan and Sin? Well,
Yes.
now Joshua, in his defense, he didn't know that, so they went up to fight AI and they got routed by the
Yes.
AIs. And Joshua was like, wait, and God said, "There's sin among you." And of course, they found the sin, and then they won the battle the next time against it. But they had used the same flee like you're scared, and then did exactly what they
Right.
did the Benjamites, and then they engulfed them on 2 sides and got the men of Ai. I mean, sin is a serious thing before God, and that's,
It
you're right, Sharice. I wonder if that's what he wasn't showing them. And now they're in this predicament with their brother. They're still Israelites.
Yeah,
Benjaminites
they
are still
are.
the Israelites. Now they're like, oh, what we do? And I don't know, Sherry, to answer your question, that's all I could come up with. Unless you guys, I think maybe they're just trying to figure out, God, are you going to answer? Where are you? And they're not really inquiring.
And are the
They're just making these.
600 still up in the
Yeah, they
in the
are.
Rock of Rimmon? They're
Yeah,
still up
Still up
there.
there. Yeah, they're still up there.
they're out there without wives because it just
Remember,
remember
now
the
they
story.
killed all the women and children and cattle
Yes.
and burned
Yes.
everything down. I'm like, oh
Yes.
boy. When you
Right,
first
oh
read that,
boy.
you're like, oh
Yeah.
boy, how's this gonna? And they're refusing now. They took a vow. Nobody can give a wife to
Right.
them.
Right.
Technically, that's kind of how they married, right? Intermarried among the tribes,
Yes.
among their
Yes.
own people groups. But now we're like,
So
So
now the
They're in a
question is, they got a question on the table, but they're not inquiring of who? Lord,
God, they're just making statements about God, but they haven't
not
asked Him
inquired,
through prayer,
right?
fasting, repentance, any of that
None of
stuff.
that.
No,
None of that. They're just they're talking amongst themselves and reasoning out what they're gonna do. Not
right.
what God wants them to do.
That's what I
What
think's
they're gonna
happening.
do.
They're trying to figure it out. What are we gonna do?
So let's see what they come up with. And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel who did not come up to the Lord in Mizpah? And behold, no one had come into the camp from who?
Jabesh Gilead.
Yep. But when the people were numbered, behold, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. And the congregation did what? What did they decide to do? They sent,
They
go
sent
ahead.
the war party to them, right? The warriors, 12,000 warriors, and said, "Go up there and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the sword, and bring back the women and the little ones." So they said, "Go kill the men, and bring back the women and the children."
Right. It said, right. Bring back. It says,
So
Wait,
do you
no,
wonder
no,
was
bring
yeah,
back the
the
virgins.
bring back the
inhabitants of
virgins. I'm
Jabesh?
sorry,
the
bring back the
virgin.
virgins. I'm sorry, I
That's
forgot.
all
That's
right.
what they did. Yeah, sorry.
So
So they
were the
destroyed the
inhabitants
women.
of Jabesh, were they being disobedient and not coming to the congregation, or did they miss the message to come? They may just be over there minding their own business.
Remember now, we don't know technically, But we do know that they're making their decision without who?
Without God.
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 Without
Yes.
God.
And
That's
if you go
true.
back and look closely at who assembled, it could have just been a meeting of the warring men. It was
Ah,
the
gotcha.
400,000 men who were warriors. Now that doesn't, so maybe there were plenty that didn't come up. If they're just little village folk, they don't have any sons and daughters that would have anything to do with the war parties of Israel. I don't know. But if we didn't dissect all of that, I wondered all that. Well, who is exactly meeting? And if you go back and read Deuteronomy and some of the other places, usually it was the men who were assembled for war. That's
Right.
how they numbered them. That's how they often called them. But they had meetings when everyone was to come too. Women, men. I don't know exactly. I didn't flesh it
But
out
it
completely.
doesn't sound like that they had the meeting with all the congregation of
Yeah, it
Israel.
doesn't seem like it was with every single
With every
jot and
single person.
tittle. So
Right.
that may be why what you said is true there.
They didn't come. So in their own wisdom, remember I'm right in my own eyesight, right? I got my own wisdom, okay? They decide to go and kill off all the men and women who have lain with a man. They destroyed every man and every woman who had lain with a man. And they're going to bring the virgins. So they brought 400 young virgins. You just sit
Yeah.
here.
And how did they figure that out? That's a
Thank you
don't
very
know.
much.
No, maybe
I'm
they
just
just
sitting
made
here
assumptions
going,
they have
whoa.
children. Well, you got to remember, an Israelite, they wouldn't have, it's different from us. We wouldn't just be sleeping
Right.
around. They would only, if they had children, that's and married, or if they call, they would know
What
they
if you're an old virgin?
See, I don't
Your Aunt
know.
Mabel Purr,
That's
they're
what I
dragging
wondered
around.
too. I don't know.
You
But we're
know?
still in a
Land, y'all
culture
make
where
it.
most of the women were married. To be unmarried would have been rare. But yeah,
Right.
I don't know. I thought all those kinds of
Okay.
things. I don't know.
But they take these young virgins of their
It doesn't
own.
say young ones, so I don't know what happened to the old ones.
You
If
know
there
what I'm saying?
were.
Yeah, you
Well,
see 400 young
and how
virgins.
young? That's
Don't even
anyway.
know.
Okay.
It's a
Don't
scary
even
thought.
know.
Remember now, they're doing their own thing. Because
Right.
nowhere here does it say
And
that they,
what made me sad with this is they would destroy the widows. You
they
see,
might have. They
because
said
that woman, it says
every
every
woman
woman
who
who is
has
laying with a
lain with
man,
a
so she
man.
may not have a husband. That's just sad. That made me sad.
This,
Well, it makes
well,
me sad anyway, but I was just like, oh,
this is strange. So now you done killed off the young women's families, because that's what you did.
Yep.
You take the young women, the young virgins, and you bring them to where you're going to do, right? What you're going to do. And then the whole congregation sent word and spoke to the sons of Benjamin, who were at the rock of Rimmon,
Oh my.
and proclaimed peace to them. I just sit here and go, well, well, well. So Benjamin returned at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had kept alive from the women of Jabesh Gilead. Yet there were not enough for them. Remember, they
Only
had 600
400 to
men,
Mercy.
600.
now
There's
400.
200 without.
Now, this had to be shocked with these young women. Number one, you kill the family. Now you're giving us to be brides, and now they got these women, and they ain't got enough. That's what we say, they don't have enough of it. And the people were very sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. I love it. The Lord had made a breach in the tribe of Israel. I put a question mark there, you ain't gonna lie. The Lord made the breach? Let's see. Okay. Then
But
the
you know
end.
what? What's
Mhm.
really weird about this? They're still
What?
giving their own people's daughters to them.
But it's not their daughters.
But they're
It's
still part of
somebody
the
else's
Israelite
daughters.
nation. You're just like,
I
isn't
understand that.
this weird? Are they
Yeah,
not
because
in a weird way doing what they said they weren't supposed to do?
what
That's
aren't
just
well,
weird.
aren't they operating on their own
Yeah, I know.
wisdom?
And this just shows you how
Yeah.
man's wisdom is foolishness before God. Corinthians teaches that, right? And you're
Yeah.
just like, this makes a lot of sense why it's so
What is
foolish. I
what
mean,
does Proverbs say about the way the man thinks? When it
he's
talks
right in
about,
his own eyes,
you
but
know
it's
what I'm
God who
saying?
directs his steps.
You know what I'm saying? Ooh, you just told
Okay,
him.
so what tribe was Jabesh Gilead?
Did
Good
anyone
question.
Oh, I looked that up. I've
What'd you
got to
find?
find it. Hold on.
This is very interesting. I know this chapter, but I read it while you were looking for it. I just
Um,
got here and went, wow.
I,
This is
I
too much
just
for
had
me.
it and then clicked off of it. Hold on.
Oh, I think I've got it.
I think it's Gad or
It's
Ishar.
a town in the territory of Gilead.
I'm looking at my atlas correct. It looks like it's in
It
Gad.
Yeah.
It's east of the Jordan on top of one of the green hills of Gilead, within the limits of the half tribe of Manasseh in full
okay,
view
there
of
you go.
Bethshan.
So half tribe of Manasseh.
So Manasseh, right?
Yes,
On that side where
yes.
Gad would be, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Took these poor 400 young virgins. Okay.
She's
So
trying
they
to get through
destroyed
this
another.
story.
They destroyed another.
You
They
know, I'm
destroyed another
sorry.
people.
She's like, can
You
we
know,
just
I'm
get
just,
through this yucky stuff?
I'm just, saying these 400 poor young virgins down, give them off to these men. Okay. Then the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for the wives of those who are left? For wives, wait a minute. What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? Still, they haven't done what?
Inquired of the Lord.
It's very interesting. They said there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, so that a tribe will not be blotted out from Israel. Okay. But we cannot give them wives of our daughters. For the sons of Israel had sworn, saying, cursed is he who gives a wife to Benjamin. So they said, behold, there is a feast of the Lord from year to year in Shiloh. I just love the way they come up with stuff. Okay. Which is on the north side of Bethel and on the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south side of Lebanon. And they commanded the sons of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards.
Here
They
we go.
lie in wait, y'all. And watch, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to take part in the dances, then you shall come out of the vineyards, and each of you shall catch his wife from the daughters of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. Okay, y'all.
I'm telling you, they're doing the exact same thing.
Here we go.
And again, if they were supposed to wipe out Benjamin, they should have wiped out Benjamin.
Don't y'all just go, well.
Double standards.
Well. So now they're going to lie and wait, and when the girls come out to go do what they're supposed to do,
The
they're going to go
dancing
get 'em.
girls.
You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. This is just too much. Right? These poor little, I just look at the poor women. They just come out to do what they're supposed to do. Woo! Life's changed for
Well,
them.
and their poor mothers that go, well, where's Sherry? She went dancing, some man grabbed her and she's down Benjamin as wife. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And it shall
Yes,
come
sir.
about. Right. When the fathers of or their brothers come to complain, of course they're going to, right? I send my daughter out to go dance, and she been taken to be a wife. They're gonna have a little problem with that. That's not gonna go over well. That we shall say to them, give them to us what? Voluntarily. Because we did
Yeah.
not for each man of Benjamin a wife in battle, nor did you give them to them, else you would be now guilty. Now, what did y'all do
Oh,
with that one?
mercy.
Like, I'm just sitting there, I wrote down backdoor way of doing this, isn't it? I mean, take them, and then now you're gonna tell them, okay, now you're gonna give them to us voluntarily. Wait a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Again,
You took them.
it's not
Now
their
you
daughters, it's somebody else's. That's what they're doing. They're just taking somebody else's daughter.
And why
And giving it
do
to
you
them.
have the right to do that? What gave you
Exactly.
the right?
And where
I
did they
don't
come up
know.
with this vow they took to begin with that they shouldn't give some of their own daughters? That wasn't God ordained.
No, that was
No.
their ordained.
Right. See, from the very beginning, it's doom, 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 doom. What we think, what we think, what we think, what we think.
dangerous place to be. The sons of Benjamin did so, and took wives according to their number from those who danced, whom they carried away. And they went and returned to their inheritance, and rebuilt the cities and lived in them. The sons of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family, and each one of them went out from there to his inheritance. And let's all read 25 together. In those
Those
days, there
was
was
no
no
king
king in
in
Israel.
Israel.
and
Everyone
Did what
did
was
what was
right
right
in
in
his own
his
eyes.
own
Uh,
that sums up Judges right there,
Yep.
does it not? Because if this chapter didn't say they did what was right in their own eyes, I do not know what else says. How they came up with this plan, I'll never know. Just go around snatching women, kill off people, and not give them an inheritance so that the tribe would not be cut off. But then you go back to what Sherry said when they were actually supposed to cut off the whole tribe based on Deuteronomy. They should have cut them all off, but they didn't. They left they allowed 600 to live so that the Benjamin would have a tribe. And then they had to get them some wives so they could make the tribe, right?
Oh, dear Lord.
I
Interesting.
think basically when we put it where we think it goes on the timeline, Israel has successfully been Canaanized.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
And I
what they
think
were
that
supposed
plays,
to
that
do
plays
has,
into
yeah.
the young virgin girls and
Yep.
all the pagan stuff that's blended in. And yeah,
They just needed to
I-
sacrifice kids and they would have been right there with them.
yes,
And that's coming.
And that, well, that
Right,
kind of they did. They
right.
sacrificed those virgins, you know, to
Right,
go. So,
right.
you know,
And they did this in unanimity,
Yeah.
right? This was
Yeah.
not just one tribe deciding, let's go get them. This was everybody. It's just
And it
that's
had to
just-
take time. They, they couldn't send an email. They couldn't get on Facebook for the Israelites and hash this stuff out, or Zoom. It took time. And I think that bothers me more than anything. You would think that with time, you wouldn't be
somebody's
so
brain
rash.
would have clicked in.
Yes, that you'd go, no, y'all, we can't do that. Wait a minute.
And then all
Anyway.
I can think of is what would be the mental state and the children that would be born with the Benjaminites now from women who would really would
Oh.
want to be their wives
You
and
have
are
Saul.
mourning
It's just
all of their, yeah. And then the first king comes from the
Is
tribe
Saul
of
is
Benjamin.
fun dad.
Yes.
There you go.
Rebuilt
Hello,
city.
Saul.
Judgment still is happening, right?
I'm telling you, Saul was a result of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So,
Well, right,
Lord,
because the Israelites demand a king.
Mhm.
The
mhm.
Lord was very clear. I don't want you to have a king. I don't want you to be like them. I will be your, I will be your king. I will bring in. No, no, no. We want a king. He went, all right, I'm going to give you a Benjaminite king named Saul. And here we go.
and
And it
it's
still is.
interesting. It's very interesting. And when you look at it, when you think about the book of Judges, we thus concluded the book of Judges.
Phew.
That's right. You said
I'm
true.
Yeah.
so glad to be out of it.
I think we all need
But
to go
don't
wash
you
our
wonder
hands
who-
or take a shower or something.
Well, I know the writer of Judges probably really wasn't done, but he was so ickified right here. Was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm just not going to finish it. This
It's
is
no
it.
more. This is a lot.
And
to
it's
take
hard to
in.
see the silence of God here.
Yeah, because he's
Just
not
like
saying
it's
much.
hard to see the silence of God in the 400 years between the Old Testament and the
Yes.
New, and that
Yeah.
cry of that baby born in a manger. That's hard because a lot of sinful practices developed, a lot of extra laws and stuff developed, with the Israelites in that 400 years of silence. And that's exactly what they're doing now. They go on there. What do we determine about years between now and the first until Samuel? Doing their own thing, making new laws, doing whatever is right in their own eyes. It's similar thing between the two testaments. I've never connected things that way until I was been doing the book of Malachi for the last couple of weeks. I'm like, wow, I'm making connections I never really thought about in the same way.
Mm-hmm,
They're very similar, almost parallel. Not exactly, but pretty close.
But his
Parallel.
silence is something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His
the
silence is
silence.
something.
But silence doesn't mean approval.
No,
That's not, I don't know, no one in this room would say that.
no.
But it just leaves you with the reader going, God, why did we hear more about you? And I think that's the point.
But were they acquiring of him?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Are you inquiring of him? Are you seeking him? No, they weren't seeking him.
They're
So
seeking
therefore,
themselves and the gratification of themselves.
and
They're
you know,
worshiping themselves. They're gratifying
but-
themselves.
but does
And they're
that not
serving
go to
themselves.
the New Testament when he says that when I think it's Romans. Okay. Wow. I think it's Romans. Does he not talk about the fact? What does he do with those that go after their own things?
He gave them over.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's still there, but he allows you to go as far. You go down to the depths as far as you can.
Yeah.
But it still shows you his power, because he could stop things right in the middle, but he doesn't. Which also answers the question, if you all realize, you may not realize it, but when people ask the question, why doesn't God do? Because he chooses not to.
Right.
Now the question is, why does he choose not to? He chooses not to. Here's a purpose. Trust me. There is a
Yep.
purpose in it. Okay, there's a purpose. And sometimes the purpose, even in the believer's life, when he's not answering you at that moment, he is answering. But for you there, you're asking the wrong question. You know, like, why, Lord? Like they asked here, why we end up like this? That's not, no. You already know why. But your question should be, Lord, help me how to not end up like this.
Yeah.
Sin that I did. You asked the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You caught on the why of all and why we end up in this mess. Why we end up in this mess. Shall I roll back the screen for you and do the playback? I had nothing to do with why you end up where you are. You do. Because you did everything was right in your own side. Eyesight. And that's enough to sober up any believer, it should be. I'm talking believers now,
Yeah.
because we're looking at it from hindsight, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep. We should go, whoa. So I don't need to be doing anything on my own site, right?
Yep.
I need to be going to the Lord about it all. Lord, now what can I do this? You know, is this the right way to go? And be patient in the wait. You know what I'm saying? Lord, direct my path. He will direct you. But if you go off on your own tangent, boy, oh boy, thankful that he does come in and save us, because sometimes he just has mercy on us. And just so you know
Yeah.
what, you just
You know,
have to-
that's right, Therese. And even in the midst of all this gross, sinful stuff we're reading, and particularly through the whole book, but as it culminates in these last 3 chapters, we still see it dripping and lavished in the grace of God.
Mhm,
Because they could have easily, like he could have easily allowed them to destroy themselves, but he
mhm,
didn't. He even
mhm,
preserved the tribe of Benjamin and
mhm.
using the sins of mankind, but he did. And we know that he continues to hold them, even coming out of the dark years of the judges. He gives them kings, and even through the darkness of the kings, he doesn't totally obliterate them, so to
It
speak,
doesn't-
until the Assyrians take the northern kingdom and then Babylonians take the southern. That's when it all
And he still
finally
doesn't.
comes
He
to it.
judges them then,
Right.
but he still doesn't get rid of all of them.
Nope, he still doesn't, because there's always the remnant, as we're learning in Isaiah, and all the way till
Mhm.
you get to Christ, right? They're
Yep.
still existing in the day of Christ when he comes and brings forth the new covenant, and all of this is now obsolete. And you're like, wow, you can't help. You got to stay focused on the positive. The grace of God
Mhm.
is still throughout the pages,
Still.
intertwined in the pages of Judges, even though
Mhm.
it's still very difficult as a human being to read it. It's just hard to
It
read
is.
it.
It is really hard. It really, when you get to the bottom line, you're like, okay, wow. Woo!
But one
Okay.
thing I found striking about this, they went to war against Gibeah, right? For what they
Mhm.
had done to the concubine. And they're doing the very same thing to Benjamin. Isn't that weird? One of their own.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
wow. They destroyed, that's just weird. I don't know. It's just odd.
Very odd. But we have done Judges. I know y'all probably rejoicing at this point. Some of you are. I mean, I love the Word of God and I love Judges, but Judges is like, ooh, okay, I'm done.
I've done this book like 3 times, I think, in depth. And I'm just like, when you're finished, you're like, whoo, I don't think I want to read anything horrendous for a while. It's just hard. Have to take a break once you do the book of Judges. Phew. I'm
Very
glad
good.
Ruth and First and Second Samuel come up next, and we don't hit like the Kings immediately. Oh, because you're just like, I
Yeah,
couldn't
because
handle
that's a
that.
whole nother.
Couldn't
That's a
handle
whole
that
nother
right after
piece.
the Book of Judges. Oh my! So,
That's a whole nother piece.
because
But you get
Ruth was
to
happening in the time frame of the Judges, and
of
there's the love and the grace and the beauty of God, including Canaanites in His redemptive plan and the whole kinsman redeemer idea. And you're like, oh, the light in the midst of all the darkness. Of course, we had Deborah and all the ones who were good judges. I'm not saying that, but it's just neat to know that that was paralleling it. It's
Mhm.
and Esther comes in too, so it's really neat.
all of these things that we learn and we see. Well, ladies,
Phew.
we've completed Judges. You all did a great job. Hope you enjoyed doing. Not enjoyed it in the sense of that, but the fact that you completed it, you learned some things. I hope. Did anybody want to share anything that they learned throughout Judges?
We don't want to be like them.
How about that?
To say that.
Don't do things in your own eyesight. That's mine.
Mm.
Stop looking at yourself and your wisdom and see God's wisdom
Or
for
looking to God.
look to Him.
It's just that
Yeah.
it's a reminder to me that I am like the Israelites.
Yeah.
And that my prayer is that the Lord of his church now, the body of Christ, would continue to lavish his mercy and grace upon us, an undeserving people, bringing forward his word and saving all those who he's called to save. You gotta, because this is our ancestry. This is our spiritual, this is where if it weren't for them, we wouldn't exist. If you think about it. So, and yet we struggle with the same things. Nothing new
Yep.
under the sun, as Sharice always
Nothing.
says.
Nothing.
Nothing new under. We may not be chopping up concubines and all that
Thank
kind
you,
of stuff,
Lord.
but we still do similar things. The concepts are still there of how we can fall
Mhm.
headlong into sin, or rationalize with our own wisdom, and think we're doing what's right before God. That this is what we're supposed to do, right? Even though we don't inquire of him, we don't rely on him. I'm not talking about specifically us. I'm talking about the church in general. We can still fall prey to that.
Yes.
So we have to pray against that. But we still have to remember God's grace and mercy and love. He's a God of judgment and justice and wrath and all, but he's also still that God of love, grace, and mercy. And we have to realize how undeserving we are of that too.
Yes.
So it should make us humble and thankful.
It should. It really should. I still see the mercy of God, even though it was he still had mercy. So cool. Anybody else?
Oh, and just a quick reminder
Yeah.
before I forget, when we close out, don't forget, if you want to take Ruth, the book of Ruth, starting in July, you have to register for it. If you're
Yep.
in this class, just because you're in the class won't mean you'll just continue. So make sure you go and register if you have not.
Yeah, I did that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there is a separate Facebook Ruth group, so don't forget to join that one too.
Yeah, I didn't do
What is
that.
it? Has it been made up yet?
Yeah, if you registered, which you did, Lisa, because I saw it in your email, there's a link to the Facebook group.
Oh, there is. You know what? I saw that when I was on board the ship the
Yeah.
other day and I couldn't click on it. So, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Miss Ship person over here.
Yeah, I'm
Miss
paying
Ship-
for it right now. So,
You're paying for being on the ship, girlfriend?
yes, because I've got a cold.
Oh.
Oh,
That's the one thing I don't like about cruising is, man, if somebody's sick on that ship, everybody gets sick on the ship. So yeah, I'm fighting
Really?
a sore throat. Yeah. So,
Look like from the pictures you had a nice time.
I had a good time, but I always get it after I come home. Like when we were traveling home yesterday, I looked at Robert and I said, I'm getting a sore throat.
Oh, no.
So, but anyway, it was fun.
So, ladies, I thank you for participating in the Book of Judges. And as they've already told you, Ruth is coming up next. Ruth doesn't start till July. So you got time, you get a little break next month to go start studying Ruth. I encourage those who are in the class study Ruth 1 and 2. Go ahead and study Ruth. It's a good book. Very interesting. So I have nothing else for you. You can get out early.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for teaching us.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you, ladies, for all sharing and being a part of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll see most of you in Ruthie Booty Book of Ruth.
Yeah,
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
a
It'll be
good
fun.
conversation and discussion.
Yeah.
Let me stop the recording here. Where's how you stop this thing? Wait a minute.
I
I'm on
can.
my
Boom, I just stopped.